Okay, so a good Saturday morning to all. Right, welcome to today's PAM-HCC talk. Okay, so today's topic, we have the return of Masjid Kampung Laut from Nirampuri to Kampung Laut, Tumpat, Kelantan. Okay, so we have all our speaker here. Right, so sharing here is you can see the sign-in code from PAM-HC, so 1965. Okay. Right. Okay. So a message to all Zoom attendees: do take note the sign-in code provided, and also there will be a sign-out code at the end of the session. A Google Form link will be shared later in the chat box when the end of the session as well. So do post your question and using the Q&A, and we'll try to answer all the questions. Okay. So for today's topic, the return of Masjid Kampung Laut from Nirampuri to Kampung Laut, Tumpat, Kelantan. So Masjid Kampung Laut is one of the oldest mosques in Malaysia that is still in existence and in use. It was built in the 400 years ago in year 1600 by the Muslim seafarers missionaries traveling from Champa to Java Islands. As fate has said, so the vessel hits a storm and was almost shipwrecked. Prayers to the Almighty saved their lives, and they safely landed at Kampung Laut, which at the time was a seafront village. In return, they built a small wakaf mosque to fulfill their prayers and continue their journey. Over the centuries, the mosque was extended to its present size. In year 1966-67, the Bah Besar, the big flood, caused extensive damage to the masjid and was about to swallow by the Kelantan River. The only way then was to move the mosque to Nirampuri, and the effort shall be spearheaded by Persatuan Sejarah Malaysia and Mubin Shepherd. 50 years later, today, this year, the Kelantan State Government and ERDC initiated the return of Masjid Kampung Laut from Nirampuri back to Kampung Laut, and at the same time, restore the mosque to its original glory. Today, we have 4 extinguished speakers which are involved in the recent work of the return of Masjid Kampung Laut. Firstly, we have Architect Muhammad Shahzad will do introduction to the project, including the overall project brief, the site planning, the rationales, the design rationales, etc. as well. Second, we have Prof. AMRAN. He will describe about the conservation documentation process after HAZMAN and construction contract formulation as well. Third, we have Dr. HAZMAN will describe about the conservation construction processes and details of the actual conservation works as well. Fourth, we have Architect AZIM. He will describe about the narration processes and also content coverage of the coffee table book that he's working on for this project. So all speakers will present in 20 minutes and the Q&A session will be in 20 minutes later on as well. Okay, firstly, before I ask the first speaker to speak, let me introduce him a bit. Architect Muhammad Shahzad BAHARUDDIN. So he studied architecture in the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, USA in 1983 to 87. On completing his bachelor degree, he worked for Teachers and Berhad as a subsidiary of AMRAN as assistant architect and involving himself in design and supervision of construction of various types of projects as well. He then continued study in architecture in MARA Institute of Technology Shah Alam in 1989 and graduated in 1992. He then joined Pakatan Architects and Berhad and was later promoted to design and project architect, and currently is the director and shareholder for the same firm. Within the 31 years in Pakatan Architect, he was then involved in various kind of projects. He currently is the architect in charge for the relocation of conservation projects of this Masjid Kampung Laut, Tumpat, Kelantan under ECERDC. Okay, all right. So without further ado and take more times, I'll let the speaker speak more. So Architect Shahzad, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Architect Yong. Very nice introduction of myself. My name is SHAHAR from Pakatan Akitek. We are in charge of overall project of redevelopment of Kampung Laut Tumpat Kelantan and relocation of Masjid Kampung Laut. I'm going to do a brief presentation of the overall project, which one of the important things is actually relocation of Masjid Kampung Laut. The first slide is actually shows the river as an important part of the whole site, a main communication means during the previous years. Yes, so river is very important. The next slide, this slide is actually showing the location of original Masjid Kampung Laut. So original was built in Kampung Laut and then relocated to Nilampuri. Now the project is actually relocating from Nilampuri, 20 kilometers away to the original site in Kampung Laut. Again, the river shows the new location is actually next to the river of Kelantan. Pictures on the right top is actually the site that we are going to relocate. There's a small plot of land where is the relocation will be done. And the lower right picture actually shows the location of Masjid Kampung Laut at Nilampuri, which actually has been dismantled and relocated in the process in Kampung Laut. Next slide is actually showing the pictures, the condition when we start the project. So picture number one shows the open space from the main access. Can oversee the river at the backside of the site. There's two big trees, there's the left and right. So that is the location of the relocated Masjid Kampung Laut. And the rest of the pictures also shows a view of the site from left hand side. Previously, the site actually at the river bank, full of squatter shops, wakaf, and car garages, etc. So the site is actually sort of divided into two parts. One is on the bottom side and connected with a link, actually road reserve, and the top side where the location of the mosque will be. Okay, again, this is the schematic diagram. The yellow shows the location where we will place the mosque, which is actually very near to the actual location. The actual location is actually inside the river on the right side of it. So these are the pictures that shows what we intend to do. The yellow is actually the location of the relocated Masjid Kampung Laut site. So in a summary, we have bottom part of it where we call package one, where we relocate the shops for making serundings, dodol, the local delicacy, gelombong buaya, and the top part we will place the mosque at a good location, and then supported by bengkel, which will have wow making, some handicrafts, another delicacy, silverware, and small shops selling food delicacies there. And connected with a jetty, which they will commute to the other side of the river. So the right side of the picture actually shows the location of the mosque and the jetty at the bottom of it. I just want to describe when we started the project. It was in 2016. We were appointed by ECRDC. So on all, there are opportunities because the leaderships have the will to initiate the project. So maybe they started earlier, much 1 or 2 years earlier, maybe in 2014. They have the idea to relocate the mosque from Nilampuri to the original position, which is in line with Jawatan Warisan requirement, to locate and conserve the building as close as possible to the original location. And from that, with the leadership's will, they have started and allocated some budgets for the project, and they have assigned a good agency to undertake the project, which is ECRDC. The client are quite passionate to do the conservation project, not just the mosque. In fact, they want to do a better environment for the whole village of Kampung Laut. And then from there, they have a dedicated team from the client and from the team of consultants. And furthermore, this is actually a good historical product which can actually be listed in Jabatan Warisan Negara. Furthermore, there are existing community activities, especially making surroundings. There are lots of houses making at the backyard surrounding and surrounding product, and some other local products as well. As I mentioned, dodol, gelombong buaya, krepek, small curry puff, etc., etc. And the state and federal government is actually assisting the local communities to uplift their local social economy. And the place actually has become a tourist attraction from local Malaysian as well as from Brunei, Singapore, Indonesia, and Thailand. So it's a good opportunity for a project to be developed together with relocation of the mosque. While doing the project, of course, we are facing some challenges. The first is actually the site is actually at a river reserve, no land. So, and then the land is actually acquired, occupied by squatters, some bankers, shops, and car garages. So inavailability of land, then we have to do with the government help, land acquisition, and the site is actually next to the river, prone to flood, and some initial local resistance, they don't understand what's the project, and later on they are supportive of it. Next, actually, there are existing activities, shops selling surrounding also. So we have to do relocation. The government have to do the relocation of the shops and temporary houses and garages. They have allocated some place, and it takes some time to do the relocation as well. Then again, there's another project beside our project. JPS actually has appointed a contractor, big contractor, to do the flood wall. Later you will see in the pictures. And about this mosque, there are a lot of information, but information are scattered around. So it's quite a task also to gather the information and see the validity of the information. And last, actually, the mosque is actually quite a sensitive building. So we have to preserve all material, whether we use it or we don't use it. We have to preserve it and keep it at a safe place. So it's quite a challenge to do that as well. Okay, and in the picture, actually, we are showing you a completed phase 1 project, which will house the local traditional food maker, such as serunding, gelombong buaya, and dodol. The project has been completed and handed over to MOTEC, Ministry of Tourism and Culture, last 2 months. So they will open it early of this next year in 2022. They will house the previously demolished shops along the river bank. On the side of it, actually the completed flood wall. What happens actually, we have elevated the site, so about 1.2 meters above the original ground, but still the flood wall is actually 2.4 meters, 2.5 meters high, so they can't actually see the river on the left side. But now the site is actually much protected from river flood. Another view of the site, package 1, so completed, will be operational. Everybody are invited then next year to go to buy surrounding over there. Again, flood wall, they can't view the river anymore. So this is actually a plan showing package 1 on the right side in blue color, and connected via road reserve. We have to redo the road also, make it wider so that a bus can access to package 1. And the left side, the red color, is actually package 2, which will consist a platform for the mosque, the relocated Kampung Laut mosque. Extended to it into the river is actually a new jetty, so that people can commute from this side, Tumpat, Kampung Laut, to the other side of Kota Baru town. and surrounded, the site is actually surrounded by local houses. Another site plan, so it's a much clearer of package 2 site plan. So on top of it is actually a platform that will house the Masjid Kampung Laut. On the right side is actually the jetty. Interesting enough, is actually the flood wall actually has blocked the view of this package 2 site, but we have requested and have been completed also a flood gate, so that actually people can access the jetty from the platform at street level, so they don't have to climb over the wall to go to the jetty. So again, we are also preserving 2 mature trees, rainforest tree, which will blend nicely with the relocation of the Masjid Kampung Laut. Supporting that masjid is actually some commercial activity, a workshop, and a small shop selling delicacies. On the right side is actually we have listed some of the units that will be built together along with the Masjid Kampung Laut. These are the detailed plans of the masjid platform. The size of the platform that we provide is actually about 20 meters by 30 meters. So it's not a big platform. The platform will house the original Masjid Kampung Laut. We have a site on it, item number 11, actually the toilet and ablution. There will be also, we will also bring in the other items attached to masjid itself. Item number 2 is actually the minaret. Item number 3 is called the bedok. It's like a drum. They call it for prayer. They hid it to call people for prayer. When we have allowed for place for taking ablution, the original one, number 5, and there will be a small plaza for briefing. So when people come during their visit to this masjid, there will be a briefing place. And we also have a ramp, and along it, there's a wall that will do some display about the history of Masjid Kampung Laut. This is actually a section showing the platform of the masjid. The platform is actually about 2.5 meters higher from street level. What we'll do is actually the masjid is actually was on a raised level. It's about 3.5 meters originally. So from street level, when you look at the masjid, it's actually about the same level as previously being constructed. But it will do a platform because we are actually bringing the design or the original, what we have seen in Nilampuri, we put it in place in this platform. So whatever we have in Nilampuri, we'll just bring it over and put it in Nilampuri. But in terms of height from the street level, it's actually 3.5 meters from the street level. So it's look like the original, but it will give a good level, good prominent level from the street level. I will show you later on the perspective. But from this platform, visitors can view the river, quite good view towards the river, as well as toward the other side of Bandar Kota Baru. See, this is a view from the river. This is actually the east view from jetty looking towards Masjid Kampung Laut. This is a main entrance view from the main road. So it's actually a raised platform. So we'll put a nice landscape and give a prominent level, viewing level towards the mosque. So from entrance, it's good level. And patrons or visitors will come over, drop off on the right side, pass through the ramps and steps. So it's actually the three levels. So first level is actually about 803 steps. So from there, they'll go further south and they will take another steps of about 2 meters. So they don't feel much of the height of the masjid. So it's kind of quite convenient for visitors to go to the masjid platform. Plus, we will have a display board there to describe the history of Masjid Kampung Laut. This is actually another view from the entrance of the bus drop-off, showing the platform and display information for the mosque. Mature tree that we have preserved, and the background is actually Masjid Kampung Laut with the minaret. Area view of overall complex from the main access. So we don't have much from the main access. We don't have much obstacles, so that people from that main access, they can see straight away the mosque. Just to say that the access is actually accessible via bus. So we have to allow for turning radius, etc., so that bus can access this package as well as go to package 1 further to the south. On top of that, we also have design gateway to welcome visitors to the overall Masjid Kampung Laut village and towards the mosque. On the right side is actually the view of the site mosque. Looking at this is actually the main access. So from this main access, you can have a good glimpse towards the mosque in a prominent height. Another view of package 2. So on the left side is actually the mosque under construction. On top of it is the jetty. Currently is on a high side, high water table now. The river is rising, but the all levels are actually safe from flood. Another view from south of the site. Again, I just want to show there's a floodgate so that people can access the complex and mosque at street level. They don't have to climb over the flood wall. Another view from east, looking from the jetty towards the mosque. Another view from south of site. So just again, I would like to highlight that we are preserving the good rainforest tree, 2 numbers of it, and will blend nicely with the mosque. View from the north. Okay, that's about it. So overall complex is under construction. Will be completed inshallah by mid of March next year. So I pass back to you, Architect Yong. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Architect Shahar. Okay, so just a recap a bit. So thank you for the introduction for the project, the site planning, the design, and the design coordination, the intention for the projects, and also the client brief, that what we want, which is the intention and a good potential client that we have as well. So the architect design, the view, and also the ongoing construction right now that we have. So hopefully we can the whole project complete in March 2022 next year. Then we have another view, and we can have a summary on that as well.
Inshallah, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so let me introduce the next speaker, Prof. AMRAN. Prof. AMRAN Abdul Rahman. So he is the former coordinator of MSc Heritage and Conservation Management Program, Institute Technology Mara, ITM. His area of specialization including architecture, urban conservation, illustration, measured drawings, dilapidation, survey reports, housing layouts. Prof. AMRAN has involved in a number of conservation works on restoration and dilapidation surveys on heritage building for JWN, Jabatan Warisan Negara, and also has conducted a series of lectures of conservation of heritage building organized by JWN. So Prof. AMRAN currently working in K-Builders training and consulting firms in Shah Alam. Okay, I'll pass the floor to Prof. Okay, the floor is yours. Okay, right.
Okay, thank you. Architect Yong. I'm very lucky to and feel very honored to be invited to this webinar, and I hope we'll be able to learn a lot from this webinar. And I must say I'm lucky to be a few consultants who are involved in this project, which involve relocation of this mosque, and then to me it's an honor. We hope to do a proper restoration work and make it good, and then so that we are able to pass on to the next generation, inshallah. And surely this is a very, very huge responsibility that we have to carry. And I guess this project is also quite unique because it involves the old and new. The old is the relocation of the mosque, and then the new is the redevelopment of the project along this Sungai Kelantan. I have quite a lot of slides, but before that, I will have a lot of slides to show, but I'll go very quickly and much on the pictorial side. So this is the first slide, just to give a little bit of glimpse on the existing mosque in Nilampuri, but now it has never been there. It has been fully dismantled, and then you wouldn't be able to see this image in Nilampuri anymore. I quite like the photo on the left, which I took in 2004, which is a simple display of the mosque signage, which is now you wouldn't find anymore on by the roadside. Okay, next please. Thank you. Right, just a little bit closer view. Just this few slides actually just to introduce what the buildings look like, and then because probably some of the audience have not seen the mosque, just more on to introduce the actual building form and the materials and also this is the view of the wall, very close detail of the wall. In Malay, we call it dinding janda berhias or dinding kampung. It's a frame building, a frame timber frame wall. All right, and window is a full height, giving good ventilation, cross ventilation to the mosque. Next. Okay, a very quick step back into the history. Okay, mosque in the original site in 1966 was almost destroyed and then pulled into the river because of the flood. And the picture I think speaks by itself. Top right is the ceremony of handling over the mosque when it was relocated to Nilampuri side, and then on the lower left, actually on the original side, you can see a lot of burial grounds, cemetery around the mosque, and on the right side is the remnants of the mosque after the big flood of 1966. And then after that, they relocate this to the Nilampuri side. As you can see, the top right is the ceremony of the handing over to the Chief Minister at that time, Dr. Asri, and we appreciate the work of Tan Sri bin Shepherd, Tun Hamdan Sheikh Tahir, who took a lot of trouble to initiate the relocation of this mosque to the much safer place. Next. All right, this is what you see, a very quick view on the existing site. Only a little bit more land site is been, you can still see on site. The actual site of the mosque has been placed in, actually is located in the river now. This is only the remainder of the burial ground. You can see me and my friend with the penghulu went to take a visit. So the right is the remnants of the tombstone, Nisan, Batu Nisan, and that's what is left now on original site. Next. This one just more on the typology of what we have mosque in Nusantara region. Yeah, we have from most of the mosque has got this pyramidal roof, and then mid-tier roof, and then the lower tier roof. It's very basically, to me, I'm not going to talk much on the spiritual aspect, on the symbolism aspect, very much on the practical and structural function. You look at this is the way, very much on the way a building should be able to cover on a large building. Considering most of the building in this region are quite small, this is the way of having a bigger roof to cover a large area to support the prayer and the Jama'ah. Okay, we have this tower, which is the 4 pillar supported. They're going to support the pyramid roof, and then it's being supported by the second tier roof, which is normally supported by 12 to 16 column. In Masjid Kampung Laut, we have 16 column actually. And then of course the third tier, we have this the third tier very much on the lower tier roof, which very much on the veranda or surrounding area. And this is normally open to have a very nice cross ventilation to the mosque. Next, please. Okay, initially only the main prayer hall was relocated to Nilampuri side, and then after that efforts has been made in 1988 to add few more spaces around this main prayer hall. But for the relocation process, we only took the main prayer hall because of the limited space that we have in Kampung Laut, leaving behind these other spaces. But we have made good, and probably in case the management decide to use for some other function before new mosque perhaps would be built on the Nilampuri side. Next. Okay, this is the last function that we have. The last prayer, Jemaah, Salat Jemaah Terakhir, is when we have that Menteri Besar, Chief Minister, who was able to attend, and we have this semayang Salat and also Doa Selamat. And this is the last of the Salat Jemaah in the mosque in Nilampuri. Next. Okay, this one, there's a lot of written text here, but we'll go very quickly. I'm covering a little bit on the documentation process. So in conservation, of course, documentation process is the most crucial. And as Jawatan Warisan has came out with this guideline handbook, it says a lot of, it gives a lot of emphasis that we need to do a lot of documentation process. Even before the intervention to the building, we have to do the preliminary study, and then during we do the dilapidation survey report, and then during the process of construction, we have to do the ongoing project documentation, both in written documents and also photographic evidence, video, and so on. And then finally, we have to submit the as-built drawing. So there are a lot of documentation process that we have to go through as required by Jabatan Warisan Negara. Next. All right, so these are basically the stages of building construction, building conservation. Whenever we do the conservation project, of course, as I mentioned, documentation process is very, very crucial. The preliminary investigation, you will have to know the owner, the land title, who owns the land, what are the neighboring buildings, how do they contribute to the site, do they block the site, are there any big trees around the site. These are all, do they have drawings, building drawings? So these are the components they have to get ready. Should they have no drawings, then you have to do measure drawing or as-built drawing. Then from there on, then you can proceed to the dilapidation survey report. And then after the project start, you have to just about to start. You get to be ready with the project brief, the tender document, contract document, and then only conservation work may start now when the contractor has been appointed. And then after that, they will have this heritage maintenance program, which is part on the way, the maintenance program, and the do's and don'ts, once the building has been completed. Next, please. Okay, this very sorry, quite a long detailed explanation. I borrowed this slide from Prof. Dr. Ghaffar. It shows again all the three stages, but slightly in the detailed manner. We have this preliminary dilapidation survey report, and then preparation of tender document, and then when the conservation work start, we have a lot of documentation process that you have to follow. And then, as I mentioned from the previous slide, we have the heritage management plan. Next, please. This is also mentioned in the Jawatan Warisan guideline on heritage building conservation. It says quite clearly on the process of the documentation. I'm referring very much on the number 3, which is colored red there, pink there. It's about dilapidation survey report, which going to be a detailed study, detailed survey work to the building to understand the defects and the decaying process and the general condition of the building. That will be properly documented with a lot of photograph, drawings, and so on. And this become part of the document for contract and also for process of the BQs. And also this report also shall be submitted to the Jawatan Warisan Negara. Next, please. Okay, what is dilapidation survey report? Is, I think, straightforward. It's just a survey to identify the building defects, the general condition of the building. So you will have to do a lot of media by means of video, by means of digital documentation, and this shall be a very detailed and complete, so that it will give direction on how the conservation or restoration work can be done, and also for reference purposes in future, for maintenance program, for students, researchers, that will this book report will have a lot of information on the condition, the status, and also in this dilapidation survey report, the usually being done by a conservator, and in this report, the conservator will have to write identify basically source of defects, and then also try to provide some indication on the way how to do the repair work, the treatment, and so on and so forth. And also necessary to suggest a few lab tests. In this case, we invite MTIB to identify wood species, so that we are able to propose if any restoration work or repair work, original species must be made available. All right, next please. Okay, this one I may have mentioned earlier. It will be part of document, very good source for reference, and also for BQ, and also part of the building contract. And as I mentioned earlier, has to be submitted to the Jawatan Warisan based on the requirement in the ATSA 645 or National Heritage Act of 2005. Next, please. Basic content. Well, this what has been indicated in the guideline, but of course you can go more than this. But these are all very basic that you have to include Basically, it starts with the historical background, and then talk a little bit on the architecture, why such building is important, architecture features, pictures and drawings indicating the defects, probable cause, and then how you can go about, probably some indication on the methods of repair and techniques, and if there's any requirement to do a scientific studies, perhaps to identify the fungus. All this has got to be sent to the labs, and if there's any archaeological discovery, probably the needs of archaeologists may be required. These are all things that will help to provide a lot of information on the building. All right, and then of course we have to do the SB drawing or measure drawing, because from this drawing will indicate the location of the defects and so on. That will lead to the better BQ. Thank you. Next, please. All right, this is the dilapidation survey report of the Masjid. We did quite a long time ago, before, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, before we finally being able to submit to the Jawatan, and then finally now it's in the process of relocation by the contractor. Okay, next please. Just a little bit on the introduction to the building. These are all basically the components and the building structures of the main prayer hall. Okay. Next. More on in the interior, maybe those who are familiar, of course, there's no problem. But those who are not quite familiar, this is a very interesting interior of the mosque. We have this tiang gantung, or whatever we can call it, as a suspended post, whatever. And then we have this loteng or attic floor. We have this bracket, which is quite unique. We call it as a siku keluang. These are quite interesting features in the mosque. Next, please.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, Prof. So you have 5 minutes, huh? Okay.
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 We rush.
All right.
Okay. Okay, next. Okay, these are more on the interior and the interior of the detail of the siku keluang. Next. And the view of inside the attic, this is where people call it a suluk space. Suluk space is spiritual space where you'll be on your own, doing your wirid and so on. Most of the ulama in the old days, this is the place they go. Okay, next. Next, please. Next. Boleh salam, next. Okay, tiang gantung, quite detail of it. Next. Some of the names, of the components. Next. Maybe on the size, some of the sizes are quite oversized, which I feel that, those people in those days, they really built to last, and probably spend few generations, which is that's what we are able to see this building now, of their way forward thinking. Next, please. Okay, a little bit on the components of the roof. Next. Okay, timber decay, various type of timber decay, because of we have to understand why timber decay and so on, so that we are able to propose methods to remove the fungus, the repair method and so on. Next. And also these are all again about the way deterioration happen in timber. Okay. Wood, water is the number one enemy of timber actually. So from that water, other component will start to come in. Microorganism, fungus, all will come in. Next, please. Okay, some of the rod are not being visible from the outside, so we have to do quite a thorough study, not only visual inspection, but also other protocols. Next, please. This is very much on the common defect, very much on the end rod, dislodge, dislocation of some of the joints and so on. These are all quite familiar in this mosque. Next, please. And also the roof tiles, slipping of Singora tiles and so on, because of the flashing has been damaged. Next. Okay, again, the internal rod, the rod on the surface of the timber, because of at one time, there was a roof leaking problem, and that could be an indication of why such a rod may be quite serious on the apex of the pyramid roof. Next, please. Okay, another rod will be on the base of the column. Most of the columns experience this quite serious core rod. Next, please. Okay, next. So in this the lab report, you may do the grid number, and then you can mark it as a red circle there, and then you place some of the photograph so that you know the actual condition of the each column. Next. This is a good drawing. Sometimes you may need to have additional 3D drawing to make it clear on the layout of the columns and so on. Next. Okay, consolidation is an additional of a structural without much disturbance to the original structure. So next. So some of the span are too long. I found that some of the timber component are very long span, and we are this most going to use slightly heavier Singora tile, factory guaranteed, so much heavier. So one of the way is to provide additional strength is by having this consolidation work that you may propose in this the lab report. Okay, next. Okay, this one about inspection to the wood. That means we are not only relying on the visual survey, but we have to use other modern technique that you are able to understand the internal rod, and then you can detect early process of rot. If visual survey, what you see is more on the advanced stage, which is our job and conservation is actually to give strengthening, give extra life to the wood actually. Next. Okay, about inspection again. Those inspection, you see something funny, then more further detailed investigation has got to be done. All right, next. Next. Okay, preservative. You have to use preservative. You have to use fungicide in order for to treat the wood and sustain the strength, and also stop from future attack by microorganism or termites or any other wood boring insects. Thank you. Next. Okay, treatment of the wood. There are so many treatment on the wood that you can do after the removal. Okay, next, sorry. Okay, other item to be relocated, just for our information, the bedok, the mimbar, and also the kolah will be bring back to the. This is way forward. We are in the process. Hopefully, once we register this building as a national heritage, then we move forward to nominate to UNESCO and so on. It's a long way, but hopefully, this is what we're going to achieve in the future, inshallah. Next. Okay, final words, just tribute to those para ulama, who has built these stones, they've done so much work, and that we're able to see this mosque and pass to us. And we are here to pass to our next generation. I like the phrases saying that what we have here today is what we borrow from our children. And thanks to Tan Sri Muhammad Shepherd, the former director of museum, Tun Hamdan Sheikh Tahir, the president of the Malay History Kontrayu, caretakers, photographers. These are all who done their bits and pieces. Get responsibility that we are able to see this mosque, and it's our duty to pass on to the next generation, and we should do our level best to ensure that the restoration technique, the restoration process is properly done. Next. Okay, that should be the final slide. Thank you very much to all the audience. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. Prof. Amran has given us a very comprehensive documentation of the reports that you have worked on for the conservation, for this dilapidation reports on the building before it's moved. Okay, so that is involved in old and the new of the mosque, the building before works, existing sites condition, the history that he has mentioned, the typology from Nusantara, and the documentation process before the project starts. Okay, and also the process for conservation and the labs reports in HAZMAN, the detailed survey of the projects, the deterioration of the timber of the original mosque as well. So there's a lot of work has been done and has been well documented for that. So thank you very much, Prof. Okay, so thirdly, okay, we have our next speaker. I don't want to delay more. Okay, before that, I have to remind all attendants. Okay, so if you have any question, you can raise into the Q&A session. Okay, so there's a Q&A box there. Okay, for that. Okay, so let me introduce the third speaker, Dr. HAZUMI. So a bit of his background. Dr. HAZMAN early training was in architecture and was and also as an educator with a vast experience in project management, conducting national and international seminars and events, collaborative research and consultancy. Dr. HAZMAN currently practices as a professional technologist, specializing in building and construction technologies in the AEC industry registered under the Malaysia Board of Technologies. He is also a professional conservator and the founding director of Global Heritage Consultancy, Sdn Bhd. Okay, so let's welcome Dr. HAZMAN.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and then good morning to everybody. First of all, I want to thank AR Young for the introduction of myself, and then also I want to thank AR SHAHAR and AZIM, and then Prof. AMRAN for inviting me. Okay, everybody can see the presentation, right? Right.
Yes, very clear.
Right. So basically, my scope of work is actually I'm actually been appointed by the main contractor as the conservator for the job. So our main basically our main scope is actually gathering information, verify it, and then come up with a solution, and then also to make sure that the project is going to be delivered on time. Right, so basically for today's agenda, I've been given a task to actually first of all to actually go in detail on the process of conservation itself. If you remember the Prof. AMRAN presentation just now, right? We are in stage 4, in which we have to prepare HAB2, HAB3, the final report, and then also come out with all the work method statement to be endorsed and to be documented as a final product, and then later on is going to be published as part of the project requirement. So today we are going to discuss on the return of Masjid Kampung Laut, and then our team members, our scope of work, method of approach. In this case, we're going to actually explain to you on how we utilize the 3D laser scanning as part of our deliverables in the project. So of course, the dismantling work, I'm just going to focus on the process on tagging and also on the planning of the dismantling work, because it's very critical to have a good basically what we call a good plan, right, in order to deliver the job on time. So moving upward, in which involve the assessment of the timber, storing and securing the timber before we move the whole structure or the whole component. And then lastly, the installation mock-up work. So there's a lot of slides here. So I hopefully you don't mind. I'm going to skip a lot of work, but I do like to for the audience to see some of this sample work, especially on HAP1, HAP2. What do we mean by HAP3? And then why is all this documentation is actually important? And also we want to actually introduce on method of conservation so that it will be well received by the public, then also can be appreciated by others and also the community. So our task is actually quite basically we are actually at the receiving end. So our job is actually to basically to entertain expectation. So this is actually just a brief introduction on the site, where the site the left hand side slide is actually the existing site in Kampung Laut, and then in 2016 it's been moved, and then it's completed being moved in 1970. And then today, this is actually the current condition of the site. So let me go through on the team that involved in this project. So basically, we have several members of the team that lead certain tasks in the project. Like myself as the conservator, we have Helena, the Helena as our main researcher. So Faiza is actually the second conservator for the project. We also have Abang Zul as the project AQC, and then Hanan, our art coordinator for all the photography and all those things. So we have our project coordinator, Azrin, in which stationed at the site, basically 24 hours and 7 days to actually do a overall documentation. So we have Ibni, also our technical coordinator, newlywed last month. And we also have Rafiq, our 3D code. Right, so we have the team from Black Fox Engineering. We have Mak Hashim, the construction manager. And so also we have Encik Mazni, our project manager. Right, like Prof. Amran was saying, we pick up the whole work on the masjid is actually by doing HAP2. Or we also have to verify the work and then understand the project through the dilapidation report, initial report, and also on the conservation HAP1 report. So we're continuing the project by providing services on responsibility to complete the HAP2, in which is actually during the conservation work. Then we have the post-conservation work in HAP3, and then our responsibility to also have to do the final report for the project and do some sort of like editing for the technical videography. Right. So in this project, we introduced the BFE, the MEMCON on the project, using 3D laser scanning as part of our method. Right. There is a lot of negotiation on doing so. Towards the end, alhamdulillah, the BFE agreed, because it's not specified in the contract, but we insist that we do it. And then we compromise on giving subsidies of 50% of the cost is actually going to be backed by the company. This is actually some of the projects that have been done, in which we managed to convince Black Fox Engineering, saying that okay, we done Masjid, the National Mosque. We also done the Perdana Putra building, in which you known as PMO building. Right, so we also done a lot of heritage building before that on the scanning. This is actually Sarawak Dome buildings. In 2019, we do the Kuching Islamic Museum also, and then Kuching Textile Museum, and then also the Old Museum in Kuching. We involved in that project. So similar project that we are actually applying this method is actually on the Istana 1 National Museum. This is actually our project in 2020. Right, and also we completed the Fort Host Marudi Sarawak, in which is actually quite similar to the project that we have in for the Kampung Laut. The difference is actually the building is not been dismantled. It's just been refurbished, right, to actually repair its main structure. So beginning with the scanning project, after we have the consent from the main contractor, so I will mobilize our team to actually basically go to the site and then scan the site. I'm going to be going very fast on this. I'm just going to show on the beginning of starting the work, and then probably on the result. So this is actually the result on the scanning method. From this, we are able to actually simulate the whole process of dismantling. Right, so this is actually when we receive the contract, right, it is specified to actually dismantle the building top to bottom, right. So meaning that from the roof, then we have the body, right, and then the mid central zone, and then of course up to the stump. But somehow, when we do our simulation in terms of our work program, right? So it seems like the top to bottom approach is not very suitable for the system, especially when we dismantle it, and then we need to know where to put it and then how to store it, and then we have to have a very systematic ways on dismantling the whole project. So what we do, we actually come up with another solution to actually do it in zone, right? So we zone it out to be the outer zone, and then the middle zone, and then the roof, and then also to concentrate on the Soko Guru main column. So we are actually open up the bottom first, and then later on the main structure that is actually the Soko Guru. So when we move it, this Soko Guru is going to be built. This is the first thing that we're going to build. Of course, before that, we already done the mineral. Later on, I'm going to go through the process. So basically, what we do, we zone the building in which we open it up, the outer perimeter of the building. Then we open up the floor joist so that we can actually release some of the tension of the structure. So later on, we introduce step 3, introduce bracing to the building while doing the dismantling work, right? So this is just an example of the zone that are being given to the project team, so that everybody is actually talking in same language. So it's easy to talk zone A, zone B, zone C, zone D, so that people that involved in the dismantling understand what are our requirement, and also how do we going to actually do this. So later on, we zone it and then dismantle it part by part until we left with the main structure of the Soko Guru, and then also the main structure of the building. Right. So this actually later on is going to be the first thing that we're going to actually install, because the system is actually an interlocked system. So we need to be very careful on not to force any of the dismantling work, but of course need to understand on how this interlocking structure is actually being built, and then later on we have to dismantle it according to the sequence. Right, so this is just showing the some of the method, and then later on we left with the Soko Guru itself. So this Soko Guru is actually very critical, where we need to remeasure everything before we actually dismantle it. Also, we have to we need to finish the tagging in order for us to actually guide us to actually when we want to install it back, so it's going to be in the right sequence. So this is just a diagram, just showing you on how does the system work, the tagging work. So we have zone D. Zone D is actually the additional part where are added in the building. Is actually quite new, and then we have the main zone, the central, and then the roof. So these components are being laid out in a market tent for storage purposes before we move the whole component to Kampung Laut. So the color coding you are looking here, the purple one is actually for the roof, and then AA is actually for the Soko Guru, right? And then the blue one is actually for the central component, including the floor, and then the yellow is actually going to be the floor joist, right? And D is actually the last component of the building is going to be installed on site later on. Right, so then we start with the dismantling process. Then I'm going to go very fast on this. I think it's the pictures explain it all. So the most important thing part is actually to start tagging all the components, right? So this is actually where the tagging component started. So we have to refer to the tender drawings because the tender drawing is not specific to the component. So we need to actually make a note on the tender document saying that all this component is going to be recorded, and then the system, the coding system is going to be used in our installation work later on. Right, so this is actually an example of the tagging that we did. These are for all the non-structural elements for the building. So these are the things that we dismantle first. Then later on, we recorded what are the things that we already been dismantled. This is actually a sample of our weekly reporting, right, on what are the things that already achieved on site, and then what are the things that we want to achieve. So later on, we need to do a mock-up before the actual dismantling been done. In this case, the first mock-up is actually at zone D. Okay, this is actually least risk component that can actually be used as a mock-up to the system that we are introducing. So later on, finishing the mock-up work. So now after the mock-up work, then we need to start to actually dismantle the whole thing. Right, so just to show what I meant by zone D is actually quite new. Then you can actually see the difference between the old timber, right? This is actually the old timber, and then the new timber that are later been added. So much of the new timber are all straight edge and then very nicely cut. So again, we have to report on the work by looking at what are the things that has been dismantled. So this is just showing the complete work that have been done for the non-structural element, and then we have to store it in the market tent. Okay, this is the last component we're going to reinstate it when we reconstruct the building. So this is actually the tagging part. Once it's actually have on the upper part, so this is actually the critical part where we need to tag all the component before it is actually been dismantled. But you can see here the Azrain there was telling me through WhatsApp hashtag saying that okay, this is actually the last time he's going to actually go out there because it's no longer as safe to actually do any tagging work. So we're going to continue the tagging work on the ground. So this is actually the Sulu area. If you can remember, Prof. Amran was saying that okay, this is actually the starting of the dismantling of the timber structure, right? So we have to coordinate it very carefully. And then this is very critical because all the process, tagging, storing, stacking, moving, and skirting, and also documenting all the part and pieces of the building have to be synchronized so that everybody understand what are the everybody role in at this stage. So this is actually the buah butung, and then this the one that we have to do an extra research on it. And then to actually come up with a solution, how are we going to actually deal with this finding. So it is actually made by the replacement is actually made by I think it's a fiberglass material to replace the old one. right? So this is some souvenir that we bring back to out, right? So there is bee colonies there. So okay, I already have 15 minutes, so I'm going to be very fast on this one. So basically, these actually the souvenirs. Then we continue the tagging work on ground after all the building component are been dismantled. So I'm going to give going fast. These are some example of the defect timbers once it's dismantled. So then reporting and then timber assessment. You can see I'm trying to convince Prof. Amran on the method that I'm using, and then also brief him on the progress. So we have all the documentation. Every inch of the work has been documented in piece of paper, so that we put it for assessment from the consultant, and then also from the client. So we have a lab timber tester from Malaysian Board of Timber. So 60 pieces of timber component, all of the building component, we tested it in. So these are some of the pictures of equipments, and then also on the method of taking the sample to identify the species of every each of the components. Right, so we're also looking at this. On the left is actually the buah butung for the minaret, right, and then some detail work. So this just showing how we identified the wood species, right? So here is actually one of example of the chengar wood species. So this is actually a dam test to actually identify the water content inside the timber. So this is actually very important work where we separate the minaret into two. So this is actually the first basically component that we are actually installed on site. Right. So then this is actually the loading part. So we start at basically we start at 3 p.m. to secure the whole thing. Right, in 5:30 p.m. we load the minaret. Then this is actually the process of having to move it, and then all the challenges and all the obstacles that we have to go through. And then of course the first minaret bottom is actually arrived at site on 5:30 a.m. and then the top one is actually at 7:30 p.m. p.m. Right. This is actually AM. Sorry, it's actually AM. So basically 2 hours later, then they actually arrive at on site. So basically, this is actually the first installation begin. Right. So this is some of the HAP2 drawings I completed. So then we start with the mock-up of the whole thing, right? Because at the end of the day, with all the tender drawings, the 3D laser scanning, and all those information is just for us to realize that we need to do a proper mock-up of the building to set the building up all carefully. So this is just the process, and then looking at some of the examples of issues, right? And then we and that issue also document on our suggestion on what actually happened to the first installation or removing of the building, and then what is actually what are the damage have been done to the building. So we do the assessment. We also present all this assessment to Prof. Amran, and then of course come up with our own suggestion and solution. So yep, okay, then we are referring also to the tender drawings, and then to come out with our markup on what are the things that we are looking at, and then how we can actually suggest on the repair work. Right, so this is actually later on a detailed assessment of the building after the mock-up work. We have two set of mock-up work. First mock-up work is actually the Soko Guru, have been done on site near Nilampuri workshop. And then the second one is actually after the building, after all the component is actually been moved in to the site. So these are some example of notes been taken on site to be assessed together with the consultant. Right, so these are actually some of the example we have. Every each of these components are being documented similarly, and then also presented to the consultant in a similar way. Right, so these are all the issues been highlighted, and then we come up with a work method statement to actually resolve all this problem. So sometimes it's going to take months also to come up with consensus rectification work. All right, so these are all the examples. Okay, these are just a sample of a data finding report on the buah butung. Right, so we have to record all the finding. So this is actually the actual buah butung that been replaced by the fiberglass buah butung.
Okay, sorry, interrupt again. So you have 1 minute, Dr. HAZMAN.
Right, so these are all sample of the drawings. I think I'm almost finished. Right, so basically once it was agreed on the repair work, right, so then we have our civil engineer to endorse the drawings, and then also our work, then it passed to the actual work on site. Right, so this is actually the actual work on site. So this is actually, on my conclusion is actually the project has been completed about 75%, probably 80%. So another 20%, hopefully that we can actually achieve the deadline on March 2002 for the completion of the project. So that's me, and then also now is continue to actually share all the experience that we have. So we have Encik Johan there, right? So Johan is actually the one who actually provide us with these pictures. So I think that's about it from me. To pass it to the moderator.
Right, so thank you very much, Dr. HAZMAN. So that is a very well documented process of the conservation and also the construction works on site as well. So for hubs 1, hubs 2, and also final products to publish. So according to storage until installation, dismantling from top to bottom, the 3D scan, the whole process is very much well documented. The simulation of the 3Ds as well, the process of documentation, tagging, recording, everything is in good hand. All right, so I think another one which is Dr. HAZMAN has mentioned about the defects of the timber, the assessment, the test, and also the mock-ups and also solution of the detail that we have worked out for that as well. Okay, so before that, I think I'll request all speakers to be on mute so that we can have the presentation better. So we are a little bit behind time. So let me introduce our final speaker, Architect AZIM, AZIZ. So Architect AZIM's graduate from Louisiana State University in 1987. He started work immediately with Jurubena Bertiga. So for 5 years, then after that he obtained his land practice license in 92. Then founded ATSA Architect as a sole proprietor, and then later on Zulkaiza Hamidin officially become a co-partner of ATSA Architects Sdn Bhd. So next year, 2022, ATSA will be 30 years old. Architect AZIM also devoted part of his time in conservation works. His conservation works including Bagas Zakaria, the old Malay house set within an orchard. Recently, he was involved in relocating and also restoring a 108 years old mosque to its former glory to Taman Botani near Ipoh from Kampung Gajah, and several others conservation projects as well. Apart from practicing architecture, Architect AZIM has written several books on architecture and has documented 30 years of ATSA works. So as an avid architect and writer, he will be producing several other books in the near future. So under ATSA Publications Sdn Bhd, he has produced about 10 books and writing so far. At present, Architect Azim is tasked to publish a coffee table books on the relocation of Masjid Kampung Laut from Nilampuri to Kampung Laut, which is due to be completed and printed in 2022. We are looking forward for that lah. Okay, so let's welcome Architect Azim. Tuan
Hello.
Amran, Prof. Amran, can you unmute? Sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, I'll pass the floor to Architect Azim.
Thank you, Architect Yong. Thank you very much. Many know me as an architect, but I'm also spend some of my time writing books. I'm quite passionate about writing about architecture and history, architectural history. So this is one of the books that we've been appointed by ECRDC. Because Pakatan Architect was the architect on record on this project, and we are been tasked to documenting the background of this mosque and its process to restore to its former glory. A bit of a client, ECRDC is the East Coast Economic corridor, which was established during last time, that ABDUL Badawi, and it has been since then helping out the northern East Coast region, including Kelantan, Pahang, Terengganu, and also part of northern Johor for its development. So they are actually trying to help out to develop the East Coast, which is considered underdeveloped in some places. So what we are being tasked to do is, although a lot of money has been spent on the restoration, and there is a need to document it, and documenting it in such a way that it is for the public consumption. That's why we are coming out with the coffee table book. And the name of the book is actually Ibarat Sirih Pulang ke Gagang. It's actually a terminology meaning that it's a homecoming. As you know, the masjid was moved and saved by this two main character, which is Hamdan Tahir, which later became Tun, and the governor of
sorry, Architect Azim, can I interrupt a bit? So maybe you can start sharing from the beginning from your slides. Yeah, we are seeing. Yeah, we are not seeing that.
You're not seeing that, eh?
No, we are not seeing that. Okay.
Oh, okay. I actually have already shared. Let me share again.
Okay.
Can you see the slide?
Not yet.
Not yet. Can you see the slide now?
Yes, maybe you put it to the first page and start from the first page. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the page up. Yeah.
And sorry about that. Is it seen the slides?
No, not yet. Yeah, maybe just now you share the slides and then you just put it back to page up using the cursor, the scroll to scroll back to page 1.
Are you seeing the slide now?
Yes. This is the first slide. Yeah, thank you.
This is the slide, the first slide. I just quickly go back what I said just now. Okay. The project is sponsored by ECRDC, the Eastern Corridor, which is covering the area of Pahang, Terengganu, Kelantan, and Northern Johor. So the coffee table book that we were doing is to have a coffee table book for the consumption of the public. It's not going to be a historical or scientific paper. And the name of the book is called Ibarat Sirih Pulang ke Gagang, or in English, the same shortened version of it is Homecoming. As you know, that the Kampung Laut has a long life ever since it was being established in 1600s, and has been moved and enlarged, and now it's coming back. It's probably one of the few mosques that's been moved twice. And then what is important other than the dilapidating studies and the conservation method is to tell the story behind it and document the culture and how it came about. As you know, during those days, just to brief, it was never meant to be the Kampung Laut Mosque, but in divine intervention has caused it to the sailors, the seafarers, the ulama or the missionaries were supposed to be from Champa and traveling to Demak. So on the way, they were hit by a storm, and in their prayers, they managed to make landfall. They landed at Kampung Laut. Kampung Laut at that time was right by the sea, but now after a few hundred years, it has because of the mouth of the river, it has become a river delta, so it's more inland than it was. There are two floods actually. That's one in 1926. They call them Bah Merah, and then this is actually Banjir Besar, which we confirmed recently in a workshop, 1966. Then during that time, it was almost into the river, and it was closed. It was helped by, like we mentioned previously, Movin Shepherd, and Movin Shepherd is the first pengarah of museum or head of museum negara. He left. He stayed on from the colonial days to continue his service here in Malaysia. And Hamdan Tahe is the governor of now later became governor of Penang, who helped save the mosque. So 1998, when it moved to 1970, 1998, it was upgraded, and 2020 it was moved to this present site back to Kampung Laut, and subsequent after that will be some upgrading works or works. So the book is actually in progress because we have time to produce it because the work is still ongoing until March, and we have until probably mid of next year to produce the book. So it isn't writing in progress. So working with ISADC is very, very meticulous. They want to see every little thing, and they have to work with several people to produce the books. So we want to make sure that the book, when it comes out, it is pleasant to look at, nice to read, and it will be for public consumption. On the second thought, we might produce more of a historical book, because the first one was done by Kalam when it was moved from Kampung Laut to Nilampuri in the 1974. It was moved in 1970, completed. And after the Banjir is like right now, like monsoon season in Kelantan in 1966 and 67 is where the big flood happened. And if you remember correctly, in 2014 there was a big flood as well. They call it some call it Bah Kuning. So how we have to generate the book, we have to make sure that the book is produced with good quality pictures, high resolution pictures, with taken almost every couple of days. And I'll show you the photographer by the name of Johan. It's very good and taking pictures. And we also rely some pictures from Dr. the conservators, Dr. HAZMAN, and Pakatan Akitek, Akitek SHAHAR, and also Prof. AMRAN. So the front book, we also, the front cover as you open, this is actually the crown of the Nakota of the Mimbar. We use it as the front page so that it becomes an opening of the book. And we also include the Sukma Kampung Laut, which is the soul of Kampung Laut. So Kampung Laut Mosque or the Kampung Laut existed because of its industrious people. Not only that is they are good at making surunding or dodo or kueh, they also are good at wood carving, as well as making wayang kulit, and many others. So it was it's an industrial or cottage industry sort of a kampung rather than a fisherman kampung. So this is the front of the book that we use. And then Ganggang, Sirih pulang ke Ganggang. Sirih is, as you know, is a creeper, and Ganggang is a tangkai. So we use this sort of sketch by Akitek Zulkaisar. So we have to explain from the beginning what it means. That's the big tree that rain tree that Pakatan Akitek, as Encik Suha, Architect Suha Sahar was saying. So we are taking this, this is taken earlier on. So we are taking shots of here from time to time, as we are thinking of also producing a website to unload some of these pictures for sharing purposes, historical data. What I find in my past writings and also in this book is you have to go into several sources. And then it was rebuilt over time, and as you see, it's a unique mosque. Historically, we studied that the mosque was actually elevated as high as a gajah, as an elephant. So the elephant is actually for the sultan or the raja, because Kampung Laut has a unique situation back then. It has its own raja, so they can go to the mosque right from the gajah, dismounted from the gajah onto the prayer hall. So that's how it was built. It says it's also intended purposes. Maybe they have floods as well during those days. So this is history, then the subchapter, the subfolder. And it was Kampung Laut at that time was a trading center. Even Marco Polo has visited this place when he was on the way to China, or on the way back from to China. So some of the background sejarah we have to put it in. Those days before 1909, Anglo-Siamese treaty, Kelantan and parts of Terengganu and Kedah and Perlis is part of Thailand. So in fact, Peninsular Malaya, when you read it, actually includes Naratiwat, Songkhla, Patani, Yala, and Santun. So those days, historically, the Thais were very strong. They attack Malaya or the southern part of Malaya every summer or something like that. Whenever there is a season to attack, they will attack. In fact, they once attacked until to Singapore. They were conquering until to Singapore when it was called the Masjid. So this is some old pictures that we have dig up. There's a lot of work in terms of researching, and we had to do some researching through some locals to the museum, to Johan as well, who is an avid photographer and historian. So some of these pictures are rare pictures. And there's one photographer those days in the 60s, now no longer around, who took some of these pictures with his camera. Cikgu Su, his name, I think. So by now we have drone technology. By having drone technology is also good that you can see Kampung Laut as it is now. and record it, because previously, there are many books, many papers written about Kampung Laut and the Masjid Kampung Laut, and all of this more on the writing, so we don't have much on the pictures. So this is something that I think will be useful probably from now into the next 50 years. As you know, the Masjid Kampung Laut was in Nilampuri for 50 years, and it's moved back to Kampung Laut in 50 years. You never know, due to the climate change in future, it might have to move in another 50 years time. So this is where the red flood, well, it's not exactly red flood now, that we found out that it's called Banjir Merah, Banjir Besar. So it was up to the roof eaves, if the history is correct, and it caused extensive damage. Now the original location is in right 64 feet in the middle of Sungai Kelantan. So we had some to confirm it. We had some divers that went and checked the remnants that was there and found the remnants. So we exactly know where the position is and have a global positioning. So this is how the original mosque was at Kampung Laut and how it was first built. And it has three or four peringkat until 1966. Then the history behind the first move to Nilampuri, and when the big flood happened and the mosque was closed, and they did not know what to do with it. It was time was against them, so some parts of the mosque has to be relocated if you want to save. At that time, it was highlighted by two of these people, which is Hamdan Tahe and Mubin Shepherd, and they worked closely together in terms of collecting money and volunteering to move it to Nilampuri for safekeeping, while figuring out what to do with it eventually. It has now moved back to Kampung Laut. There was actually the intention to do that.
Right. Akitek Azim, 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the picture that you see. One of these two characters is Hamdan Tahe and Mubin Shepherd. And then this is a building in Nilampuri. We were also, prior to this in 2015, we wrote some information on Nilampuri and took some drone pictures for it. So it's good that we have that footages, otherwise it's no longer able to do that. So this is earlier shot. This is the final shot where before that the mosque will be moved, and then this is when it was moved to Nilampuri and the start. So we have to document the process and for future references and how it was built. This is the first Yang Seri that was put out together, and all these are pictures that have been selected around among hundreds that they have taken, and we use that pictures so that we be historical documentation for future referencing. Then kembali ke pangkuan. So this is going to be replaced by good shots in the future when it's completed in March. And March and May we have the window to take pictures. This is the soul of Kampung Laut, and all this will be added to the book and show how colorful Kampung Laut. And under references is the recording and telling the story, where are the ornaments or the decorative items came from. Many came from vegetable or vegetal, they call it, from flowers, and also decoration has meaning at the rafters and the roof joists. So this is the map. One thing I would like to show. This is in 1800s and late 1800s, where the Thai or the Siamese was actually occupying right onto Pahang, northern Pahang, before the 1909 agreement. Some of the detailings as well we are including in the books. And towards the end now is a back page of and it's also taken the back of the nakota or the crown, which just now you see is gold. It's not gold throughout, gold leaf. At the back is timber. And some of the pictures that we've taken recently, about 3 weeks ago, and people that is involved, Architect Zul, my partner, he does a lot of all the drawings, the freehand drawings. And Kusama, I think you all of you have known, very activist as well as a writer from Erica Books, going to be published under Erica Books and also ATSA publication. And also Johan Arif. Johan Arif is a very good historian and also photographer. Without them, many of these items will not be carried out. Okay, thank you very much. I think that's the end of it, my 3 minutes. I'd also like to thank PAM Heritage Committee, which has actually initiated this talk and helped within a couple of weeks managed to have it organized and have this panelists to collect all the data for this seminar webinar. Okay, Architect Yong.
Okay, thank you very much,
very
Architect
much.
Azim. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, right. So, okay, a bit of the summary on that. So thank you very much, Architect Azim, for the overall view from 1600 until right now, the history for the whole Kampung, the Masjid Kampung Laut until right now. So
Yes.
the history, the current thing, the interesting history, and also research. That's a lot of photographer and also a lot of research has been done for that. So from first move from Kampung Laut to Nilampuri, and then after that the documentation from Nilampuri to back to the Kampung Laut as well. So a lot of that, and also the back of the books also has a reference about the motif, the flora motif, and also a lot of reference has been done as well. So thank you very much. Okay, so right now, before we move in the other one, which is the next session, which is the Q&A. So we'll open up to all participants, to all viewers, audience, that if you have any question, please post them into the Q&A box. Then we can answer them. Okay. So before that, I think we have one question there, and also before I take that question, okay, let me put back to the view to gallery views. Okay, right. So then we have all our speakers here. So I would like to ask the first question, which is the intention that we have for this 400-year-old mosque from Kampung Laut to Nilampuri and then back to Kampung Laut again. So what is the intention for this project? So anyone, I think according to the state government, Kelantan state government and ECRDC also has mentioned that as well. So can the speaker elaborate on the intention, the good intention, the original, and also the authenticity of the project as well? So maybe yeah.
Maybe Azim,
right.
Go ahead.
No, okay. I think Prof, you want to add something? Yeah, you can take the lead.
Okay, good. This one actually, this idea of either to relocate or to replicate was the issue that was raised quite early in the project. You know, when ECRDC embarked on this, the intention is to, this issue has been brought back to the state government to decide whether it should be replicate or to relocate. You know, I was given the opportunity to give a brief explanation on which is the better option. You know, just like, you know, almost like a politician. You know, I give an open conclusion to the state government when we have a brief meeting in SUK. Looking number one, looking at the current condition of the mosque in Nilampuri, I saw the mosque was very, very popular among the university students. You know, there are two university students. There are two universities which sits next to the Masjid Kampung Laut in Nilampuri, And I'm glad that most of the students frequent this mosque, and then they do a lot of discussion, then do a lot of usrah and so on. So looking at that situation, I feel that it's quite a pity, when we start to relocate this mosque to Kampung Laut. But on the other hand, later I was informed that the state government would make Kampung Laut as Kampung Warisan, which is a turning point when I say, if that's the case, then that will be the right time to relocate this mosque, because that will bring back the history. This mosque has been taken away from the community, so that will be a good move that will highlight or enhance the the history of the Kampung Laut. So I give that two options actually, but in the end, everybody seems to agree to relocate. That's the the decision that has been made, as far as I know.
Right, thank you,
Thank you.
Prof. Right. So any additional information that you want to add in from Architect Shahar? Yes, and you have anything to add?
Yes, further to what Prof. Amran has mentioned, actually, the state through ICC, internal ICC, they call it, they have deliberated the question many times since much earlier than 2016, when they started the project. So I think they have a consensus to relocate it to the original site, and then the decision was that it is in line with the requirement of Jabatan Warisan to have the product at the nearest possible original location.
Okay, thank you.
I just also like to add, if I may, because this is considered one of the oldest mosques in Malaysia, the oldest timber mosque. So it has been located for 50 years in an area where it was generally used for only university students. And it's not properly, prior to that, it was in a kampong, and after 50 years, it become like in the middle of an urban situation. A lot of university modern buildings were built. Actually, if you look at the history of it, it is related to, if the history is correct, it's related to Masjid Agong Demak, which has a similar sort of roof form. So Masjid Agong Demak is actually well known and well preserved and conserved. So and they want to be also, the idea is to make it as close to as what Masjid Agong Demak is. And remember I was telling you the seafarers that goes to Java, they were also going to Demak and build a mosque there as well. So it is somehow interrelated if the history is correct. So this is where you have that two linkages in the mosque. And it can be added as historically, religiously, and also tourism as well.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll read out some questions from the Q&A. So the first one we have from Muhammad Azmin. All right, so other than timber, how many other components or elements being restored or conserved? So I think it's mostly technical questions that we have. So,
Prof.
Yeah, Prof, you have any answer for that?
Basically,
sorry, I don't quite follow the question. Sorry, say again. Sorry.
So other than timber, so others than timber, the components. So any other component or being restored or conserved?
Oh, I think it's basically the timber components are almost all the timber components are brought down to Kampung Laut. There's a big change in the roof covering. So look at the Nilampuri side, the most used singular tile, which is locally produced. I guess from Bacho, they have this singular tile industry. But From the way I look at it, on the Kampung Laut side, we have a huge 2 trees, which is quite close to the mosque. And then that struck me the idea of proposing a new roof tiles for the mosque in Kampung Laut, because the one that's being traditionally used and also the one used in Nilampuri is singular tile, which is quite brittle, you know. And in ceramic area, they call it as a biscuit firing. That means this cottage industry, the kiln, they use wood to fire, and then it doesn't reach desired temperature, and as such, the singular tiles, you know, is very brittle. But it's fine for domestic use, but for a mosque, I find that might be a problem for in case of maintenance, repair works, and so on. So that is one of the reasons that we decided to change from traditional singular tile to more of a factory manufactured, and that will also render a certain warranty, you know, from that product. And in such change of function, I mean, with heavier singular tiles, then of course there's a lot of consolidation work, you know, additional repair work to ensure that the mosque is able to carry this additional load from the roof. Thank you.
Right, thank you, bro. Okay, so I think that one, yeah.
We just the singular tile is actually of heavier and thicker material, and then with it's a quite a high wind area at new location in Kampung Laut, so the replacement is necessary.
Okay.
Apart from that, we are also bringing in the kolah, original kolah, which is made of granite, and then the bedok, the gong, and mimbar, as well as the another one of
kolam mimbar and bedok.
yeah, with bedok.
Mimbar.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think I'll pick up another one, which is we're going out of time. Okay. Okay, and the other one, which is I think quite interesting, is I thought that the pinnacle buah butong is from bronze or some sort. So why is it changed to fiberglass? So right, that is a question from Muhammad Azmin as well. I think previously Dr. HAZMAN has mentioned regarding for this buah butong, right? So there's a research regarding for this method as well. So is there anything that we want to highlight on this?
Dr. Hazman,
you're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Hazman, it's just that when we open up from in Nilampura, it's already fiberglass. Please
okay.
continue.
All right.
Dr. Hazman, research the original buah butung is actually from timber.
Timber, right?
And then before it, I think we don't really know when it's actually the original buah butung was being replaced. Whether it's actually before the first moving or the after. But I think the original was being replaced at Nilampuri at the Kampung Laut side, and then it was originally timber. And when it was being moved to Nilampuri, again they replaced the timber buah butung, but with a different profile. This much more on the onion shape buah butung. So in 2005, when we took pictures of it, the buah butung is still there. I think they replaced the buah butung because of the defect that happened to the timber buah butung, and then it's no longer waterproof. So the most sensible repair work during that time is actually using a fiberglass, a lightweight material, to actually waterproof that building.
No.
So those are the things that when we the mosque, it is actually fiberglass that we found. But we did a further study on it and trace back on whether we can actually found the original one. We found it. I presented it just now as our data finding, and then currently we are repairing the buah buton to be the end product, right? Later on, go back to the mosque.
Okay, good to know that. Okay, thank you, Dr. Hazman. All right, so another one. Okay, I pick up another two more. I think we have only 4 minutes. Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Okay, so another one. Every time that we have a question regarding for cost, so this, I think if you want to answer that, maybe we can. The question is, my question related to the total cost. How much has it cost transfer? What portion of each works? I think if we can review, I'm not sure. So maybe we just can review certain portion on that, or what is a budget we have for this project. Do we want to
Okay,
answer?
if I might respond a bit, we are not able to share the cost somehow or other.
All right. Okay.
But anyway, the costs are actually enough to do the relocation of the mosque.
All right. Okay.
It's quite a good amount so that we can have enough money to relocate the mosque to the new original location at Kampung Laut.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Architect Shahar. Okay. So another one. Okay. Regarding for this, Mr. Peter has mentioned, how long would the flood barrier wall need to be before it can be effective to protect against flooding from the river? Okay. Our mosque is very near to the river, so there is a wall barrier for that as well, against the flood.
Okay, the wall is actually built by JPS. The contractor is Saga Euro Saga. The height is about 2.5 meters. At our portion is about 500-meter length. The wall is actually RC wall, so it goes deep down. It's an L shape also, or inverted T shape, with some rocks to protect both sides of the wall. So it's JPC level from street level is 2.5 meter height. So people from the Kampung Laut cannot view the river. Last time may be nice to see the river, but now they can't view it. And the wall will be actually eventually extended further to the south and north of along Sungai Kelantan, both sides, from this Tumpat side as well as Kota Baru side. So it will be protected. The further in another 2-3 years, it will be completed. It's an ongoing process. The other parts, they are using berm design. Only in Kampung Laut, about 500 meters, they're using the retaining wall design. So after completion, the Kampung area and surrounding will be much protected against river flood. There will be there will be some flooding also locally. Once the river water subsides, then inside river from the Kampung area will go through the flood gate and will be released into the river. So generally will be quite safe in coming years. There are floodgates along the flood wall. And from last year and maybe currently, the river actually has reached only up to about 2 feet or 600 mm from the street level.
Okay, all right. So I think that
the mosque is actually about almost 3 meters or 3.5 meters from the street level. So even it's a big flood, inshallah, I think you will be safe for the masjid.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Architect Shahar. Okay, I think I'll just read on the last one. I think we are time already. So okay, so for Muhammad Risham. Okay, so Salam Tuan, are there any plans for tourists to come to the mosque while the river road? Okay, I think there is, right, because there is already a jetty and also a boat ride for that, and also a floodgate. Okay, so
yes, there is a floodgate already. We talked a lot with JPS. At last, they did the construct the floodgate. So it's at street level. People can commute from this side of Tumpat towards Kota Baru. And also the state is planning sort of a tourist boat that connects few points, few jetties right to the jetty nearby Tesco new Kota Baru business area there.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I think we are time already. I give everybody all speakers 1 minute for summary. Okay. So I think we start from Architect Shahar.
Okay, thank you very much. This is actually an interesting project for us as well as the people of Kampung, Kampung Laut, and it will be a good piece that serve for the whole Kampung Laut as Kampung Warisan. Additional works will be taken care by the client, ECRDC, so that the whole community will receive good social and economic impact for the project, including relocation of Masjid Kampung Laut, which has been taken care according to the requirements and guidelines of Jabatan Warisan Negara. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next one will be our Prof. Amran.
Yeah, I think the good thing about this project is the combination of the old and new, and also the integration with the local community. And I see that in future there's going to be a great impact on tourism industry. You know, people from might stay in KB and then have the river cruise going up to this jetty, and also the local will be using this jetty. So there's a mix of the local and the tourists, and it's going to be an interesting project. And the next stage probably improve environmental improvement for the kampung, probably establishing better linkages, pedestrian walkway linkages, halaman rumah, make the place slightly more conducive for tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, Dr. HAZMAN.
Okay, for me, I just grateful on to actually involve in the project, and at the same time, I also hope that much of the work that we did can be documented later on. Like I said, it is actually quite this is actually our opportunities to actually promote, right, cultural heritage, and then also heritage as an industry. In which to promote it to much more young generation, younger conservator to actually get involved in the project, right? It's not just about the money, but also on our responsibility to actually safekeeping, right, our heritage. If there is no one to actually enjoy it or involve in it, so then it's not worth on doing it at all. So I think those are my hope, and then also there's a lot of material that yet to be shared on our side. So hopefully that we have a proper platform later on to go more detailed discussion on the subject matters.
Okay, thank you, Dr. HAZMAN. So lastly, we have Architect AZIM.
Thank you very much to you and also PAM Heritage. I'm glad that the SRDC is looking at long term as well in terms of documenting it to make it more interesting, conservation, and there's a lot of and allowing us to themselves to promote Kelantan. They are rich in many aspects. Traditionally, traditional material that is not been discussed or spoken about. So this is the opportunity that we have put in the book, and to explain the history of the background, the history and the effort that has been, for the last 400 years. And the book will be about 250 pages, and we are limited. So so we are trying to make it a website version, and also if we can, we want to make a second book, which is going to be more based on the historical background, which will probably involve the same panelists here, so that we can make it more comprehensive version. And I'm glad that this will also help people in the future, a future generation, and also other projects and the conservation projects that can allow people that it can be done, and it can be done tastefully and nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Azim. Okay, on behalf of PAM, so I would like to thank all speakers for your time and also for your contribution to the project. So I would like to thank PAM HCC, Heritage and Conservation Committee, for organizing this talk as well. So it is a very good insight for all participants and everybody to know about the conservation process. From first, the history, the documentation, the conservation reports, the DLAC reports, and everything until the final one that we have another published for the books. We're looking forward very much for the documentation and also for the coffee table books that we have. It will be a very interesting topics and interesting records on 250 pages, a lot on that. Okay, for all participants, all audience, okay, so you all can take note that the code, the sign out code has been shared. So please do fill in the form, the Google form, and then to get your attendance CPD points.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.